today I wanted to talk to you about the concept called Parrhesia, which basically the most immediate translation that could be given to it would be speaking the truth, speaking truthfully, saying the truth, whatever. It has two components, the fact that one has to be true. Now, this is a very important concept in Greek philosophy, as well. Of course, the implications are important beyond that. And Socrates is one of the key figures, although he's not the only one. In a way, the Cynics had something similar, because there's a radicality in the idea of Parrhesia, which is to say the truth. Now, first of all, I wanted to oppose it to rhetorics. Why Parrhesia is not a rhetorical concept. And you have to know that in the Socratic model, the others, or the opponents, or the opposite, they're the sophists. And the sophists were very trained in the art of rhetoric. Now, don't view rhetoric or the sophists simply as people with no scruples or whatever, or just speaking in an undiscriminated way. It was an art of using speech as a mean of convincing people, as a mean of affecting people, as a mean of teaching. At the time, the sophists were very popular. That's where it's like the big schools of today. Rich people would send their children to teach with those sophists, and they would pay a lot of money, to get their children educated by those, well, maybe their sons, right? Educated by those sophists. Now, Socrates uses some of their technique. He's trained in the sophistic techniques, but he has taken other option for different reasons, and his option is this Parrhesia. I mean, there's other aspect of his work, one which comes with it, very important as well. It's called the Elenkos. I'll give it to you while we're at it. Elenkos. Elenkos is a confrontation. And you can see why it comes together, because if you say the truth, if you say what is true in general, it's rather cruel, rather uncomfortable, and it creates confrontation, from which comes Elenkos. Although one important part of the Socratic work connected to this Elenkos is questioning. The questioning as well. I'll give you a third concept for people who are not familiar with Greek philosophy. Here, it's maiotics. Maiotics, yes. Maiotics being the art of giving birth. Socrates was saying that his mother was a midwife. Midwife is the woman that helps give birth. And he was as well a midwife, but a midwife of the soul, and doing this with maiotics. So what's interesting is you see here there's a little process where you question people, you want the truth to come out, that the truth is said, and there's a confrontation in this truth, right? You can see a very specific dynamic there is in this, because as well questioning people, there is in a way, funny way, there's truth in questions, especially when you want to get the truth. Truth has this Parrhesia dimension and the Elenkos confrontation dimension, right? That's what we think as being something fundamental in the philosophical dialogue or the philosophical practice. Now, let me say a couple of words about how this is opposed to the sophist work and to rhetorics. I think the main thing, probably, is that there's no calculation in Parrhesia. There's no calculation. There's no thinking about utility. There's no thinking about efficiency. There's no thinking if that's going to help or not help, if it's going to be liked or not liked. There's no thinking. It's brainless, if you want to. It's idiotic. You just say it, right? Because it's true. And when the sophists, and think about the word sophisticated. Interesting, it's not an accident, it's sophisticated. Well, of course, the sophist is much more sophisticated. He is the PR guy of the time. He's the guy specialist in communication. He's the guy that tells you explicitly, I can sell anything I want. I can sell anything to anyone. He knows how to be efficient with the speech. He knows how to play with people. He knows how to play with the individual. He knows how to play with the crowd, right? And it's, for example, I was reading an article on series. Today's series is a very addictive, I don't know here who does it, but series is a very addictive product that you find today on the market. And they have noticed how, now because before they used to be on television, you have one a week, people just wait, till next week to see another one. And it functions well, yes. And but now today, through different things, you can watch them in a row. They've noticed that many people, they keep watching them, they can't stop. It's not an accident. Okay. This is very well thought through by experts who know how to end a series, how to end an episode to make sure you don't want to stop and you're going to keep watching them, right? So you think you're just watching something interesting. No, you're being addicted by someone who knows what he's doing. So, the way they sued tobacco companies, because they were putting products that would make sure you would keep smoking, and you stop smoking, it was painful. Well, my friend, it's the same thing with series, funnily enough. But people, okay, because you don't catch cancer, and cancer is what's important, then we don't sue them. But they should be sued the same way tobacco companies are being sued. But addiction to stupidity is not doesn't give you cancer, doesn't give you, so that's okay, so nobody's going to sue them, I think, unless something incredible happens. We sue tobacco companies or any product you consume that makes addictive. But series, I don't know if people have picked that up, they're very addictive, very addictive. A lot of people, once they start watching, I've heard many stories say, I started watching Friends. For a week, I watched, I don't know, 200 or something like that, whatever, right? Many such stories. Very addictive. So, and the sophists, they already knew. In fact, they had a very organic conception of the human mind, of the crowd. They were really good at crowds. It said they were treating the crowd with understanding like an animal. Like if you're an animal behaviorist, yes, and you know what to do to get the animal reactive. Like people that train animals, right? In circuses or things like this, they train animals. They're animal behaviorists. They know how to make animals react in a certain way. And the sophists had this organistic conception. They were treating the crowd like such an animal that you know what you can do in order to manipulate them. When they say, I can sell anything to anyone, well, they develop some techniques where they know how to convince people, right? They know how to manipulate people. And generally, the way you manipulate people is not through reason. It's through the lowest type of instinct, the lowest type of, and that's why it can be compared to an animal, the lowest level of psychological functioning. So in a way, Socrates, who was initiated to these techniques, he transformed it for different reason, totally transformed it in something that was, on the opposite, appealing to reason. He wanted to address reason for his own history. One of the explanations he does of what not to do was his daimon. He had a little beast living inside. He called it daimon, like a demon, but it has, in this case, a positive connotation, who was guiding him. right? And he often, you know, he was pushed to do things. And he did things that, sorry for the bad news, like this in the morning, for people who don't know, but led him to be killed, right? Led him to be killed. And it's interesting, the whole thing about the death of Socrates, because he was accused of perverting the youth. He was acting of having, doing bad things in discussion, like destroying other people's speech. The sophists say, you destroy my speech in little pieces, right? But something like, yeah, he had young people around him, so he was accused of perverting the youth. So he was convoked to be at the tribunal for a trial. And but people know that there was something phony about it. There was something funny and phony about it. So they actually try to make a deal with him, saying, look, if you just plead guilty, sort of, you know, like in these American things, you plead guilty, you know, you have a little fine, and you're okay. Yes, you're okay. We'll let you go. But he can't do that. You see, he's not capable of doing that. He says, well, he said, what I think, oh yeah, because the way in which he's accused, and they say death penalty, but he can propose an alternative. And they told him, you propose a little alternative, just plead guilty and you'll go scot-free. He said, well, I'll tell you, he said, I'll tell you the alternative I propose. I propose I should be taken to the Prytany, and Prytany was the place for the heroes of the city, yes, where then you're kept forever, taken care of. So I should go to the Prytany and be taken care of, which of course was a total insult for the people, because there is this guy who should plead guilty, and he comes there saying, I've done nothing wrong. On the contrary, what I'm doing is so good that I should be honored as a hero of the city, which is a total provocation, right? And why does he say that? Well, you can call it provocation, but he's not. He thinks, not only he thinks, but the oracle of Delphi had said, he said, I didn't know, but the oracle had said that I was the wisest man in the city. You know, the oracle was asked. So he has this very naive way of speaking, therefore I am a faithful man, the oracle tells me that, so I'm good, what I'm doing is good, you should put me in the Prytany. And of course these people say, this guy's a total, he's gross, you know, and of course then the alternative proposition was not acceptable, therefore he was condemned to death, right? And once again, when he was in jail, he had powerful friends who wanted to escape, to escape. And they said, you know, you should escape, and we will help you and go to another city so you don't get killed. But he said, I can't do that, he said, because I got to stick to what I said, right? In the Parrhesia, one of the crucial criteria of Parrhesia is coherency. You have to be coherent. Because we'll go through it a little bit in a while, but Parrhesia is not is not the Alcoholic Anonymous where you spill your guts. You say, well, what I do, or with friends today, what's very popular, what I really feel about things. No, it's very, very demanding, right? And one of the, by the way, if someone doesn't understand something, you raise your hand and ask. You know? But one of the key criteria of this truth is to be coherent. Be coherent. Now, this is interesting because it has a logical function, because to be coherent, you have to examine the logic of what somebody says, like a detective. Yes, where were you, then what happened, and your speech has to be coherent. So there's what we call a cognitive aspect of coherency, which it has to be logical, right? But there's a second dimension, which is what you can call the ethical dimension of the speech. To not make what is called performative contradiction. What is a performative contradiction? People, for example, let's say, I have nothing to say. Right? I have nothing to say is a performative contradiction. Because you say you have nothing to say, but you're speaking. Right? In case people didn't notice, it's so popular that people often don't notice, but it's a contradiction. Right? And you know, or people that say, I just have one word to tell you. Same thing, right? It's a contradiction. Yes. So there are many performative contradictions. Yes. So people that say, yes, I'm very happy to be with you, and they have a sad face. You know, that's a performative contradiction. So your action, here it's speech as an action. What you say and what you do have to fit. And for him, if he accepts to leave, to escape by using his powerful friends, well, he will be in contradiction with himself. And he will not say the truth anymore. Because retrospectively, he's lying about what he had said before. So there's this double dimension of logic and behavior or attitude or actions, coherency. So there's the ethical, both cognitive and ethical dimension, right? I don't know how much this is clear to people. These are two dimensions, but think, the idea of Kant wrote two important critiques, 2 out of 3, but one is a critique of pure reason. You analyze, the thinking. Other one, the critique of practical reason. You examine your actions, how you determine your actions. And these are two very important components. Speech or behavior. One is purely cognitive. The other one is in relationship to what you do. And when we do consultations, we look at both. Of course, we look at the coherency of people's speech, but as well we look at the coherency with their behavior now, at the moment they speak, as well their behavior in life. We ask them questions about their life to see if their life is coherent with their speech. Right? So in this Parrhesia concept, Socrates wants to be coherent because for him it would not make sense that it's otherwise. But the sophist here, and that's interesting because what his friends are proposing to him is to submit or to determine the goal, like surviving, for example, and determining the speech or the action in terms of the goal. Yes. So the goal here becomes some practical goal, becomes determinate. Yes, you want to survive, therefore you should do this and that. Well, you want to survive, therefore you should lie. You want to lie by commission or lie by omission. You should lie. And in the idea of efficiency or the idea of utility is fundamental in the sophist approach to things. First, you determine what you want. I want to sell this object to this person. Now, the sophist has a relation to truth. It's not like he's a total bullshit artist. No. He has a relation to truth. He's going to use truth as much as possible. But as much as possible within the limitation of a goal that he wants to reach. He wants something. In the Parrhesia of Socrates, there is no goal. It's to say the truth because it's the truth. The sophist says the truth, uses the truth. So he has to be smart. He cannot be stupid. These people that fabricate these theories, they're smart. They know what they're doing, and they're going to use knowledge which is true, which is scientific, which is based on experiment. In fact, before they bring you these theories on your screen, they have tested on people the reaction. They have all kind of things. They bring people in, they test to see how it works. So they have a view. They want something. Yes? There's a desire. There is a specific goal, and then they organize the speech in consequence. They organize the speech for reaching what they desire. Right? So in other words, they're thinking much more. In a funny way, they're much more thinking. They're more complex. They're more sophisticated. And now I want to try to underline how idiotic is Socrates. It is truth. In French, we say with an expression called Saint-Jean Bouche d'Or, St. John Golden Mouth. It means it's for children. Children, they say things that, as an adult, say, "Oh, come on, don't speak like that." Then, yes, the neighbor has a big nose, but you're not supposed to tell the neighbor she has a big nose, You might hurt her feelings, right? And by the way, today, when we do the practice, that's a lot what we hear, You cannot say that. It's going to hurt someone's feeling. You cannot tell her. She can't take it, Or it's either, by the way, psychological, this poor, and it's funny, we treat people like they're poor handicapped victims, you know? People say, but they tell for the other, don't, you cannot tell her she can't take it, but actually it's for me. You know, don't tell me, I can't take it. So we have 4 handicapped people. You walk into a hospital, you got to be careful about what you're going to tell people, because who knows, they might commit suicide, have a nervous breakdown and all this. So a priori, people are thought of as handicapped and victims, right? So, and it's funny because you say, if you tell them the truth, you insult them. No, it's the contrary. You insult them when you treat them as poor handicapped victims. And you cannot. Now, I can imagine if somebody has needs a heavy psychological case, well, why not? But most people today, you hear this a lot. And either it's a psychological argument, yes, one is a psychological argument, they're weak, they're collapse, or it's the ethical argument, yes. It's, and of course the key word here is respect. Yeah? Respect, you should respect, which basically means keep at distance, don't come too close. You might give your germs to the other people, so you respect, keep at distance. And respect or politeness, politeness, which I call the virtue of the liars. You know, liars are generally very good at being polite. They know what to do in order to get their lying swallowed. So they're very polite. They know how to do these things. But respect is the other argument using, do not tell me the truth, right? You have no right. The people use moral right. You have no right to tell me what you think. I need to be respected. That means call me professor. Tell me only things that will not bother me. That's the very important conception of respect. So it's either the psychological argument or the ethical argument. By the way, I'm throwing you some ideas which you don't have to either understand a priori or accept or agree. If you have a problem with it, just raise your hand. You don't have to be respectful. Right? So you just raise your hand so we know to speak, and then we can discuss those things, those matters. Right? Now, of course, this poor Socrates is a truly handicapped person because he doesn't know or doesn't understand or cannot play the games of society, play the game of social relations, right? Which is, you have to treat people with respect. The allegory of the cave here is interesting. The allegory of the cave is this famous story Plato tells. Who knows the allegory of the cave? Raise your hand. Okay, so some don't know, so I'll go quickly through it. The idea is a story Plato tells. It's an allegory, a myth, made to understand certain ideas. People live in a cave. We all live in a cave. It's dark. The only thing we see, which is not dark, are little light and shadow things done by we don't even know who, but there's fire behind, and then there's shadows on the wall, and you see those shadows. And these shadows is thought of as reality. Okay? But one day some guy, for some reason, decides that he wants to get out of the cave, so he tries to escape. He goes out, and Plato described, it's very hard, it's difficult, but finally he managed to get out of the cave. And there is light outside, the light of the sun. At first he's blinded because he cannot see, right? He's used to darkness. And so it's very painful to see this light. But little by little he managed to see better. And he finally can even see things around, and finally you can see that there's a sun, something called the sun, which creates intense brightness. And this man said, this is so incredible here, so great, he said, I would rather be the slave of a peasant in that place, rather than go back to the cave, right? I'd rather be, have the terrible living conditions because it's so great and beautiful to live there. But human beings being what they are, as great as is the place, he decides he goes back, he wants to go back to the cave, right? You don't really know why to tell people about it, to tell people about this dislike or whatever, but he decides to go back. And at first, when he decides, he said, described that people invite him to play the games. The games is the social games, what people do every day, you know. I don't know, whatever it is, to look good, career, some kind of competition, I don't know, win something. He cannot play those games. He cannot. He's incapable. First of all, he doesn't see very well anymore, right? He's been used to the light. We're back in the cave. He's blinded again. He's blinded on the way out. He's blinded on the way in. Right? He can't see, so he cannot see anymore. And as well, he has a hard time with those games because he doesn't belong there so much. So at first, people laugh at him. They look at this fool. But after a while, for some strange reason, you cannot simply laugh at him anymore. They become angry and finally kill him. But that's the story. And it has, of course, okay, imagine you see the connection to this concept of truth and Parrhesia. But the social games are very much connected to this idea. Do not say anything disturbing. Do not say something that's disturbing or something very classical to an established order. You know, I'm thinking now, for example, how in certain countries there are purges, intense purges going on, you know, to make sure that the established power has full authority, the classical way. But as well, even you don't need some kind of a dictator to do this. It's done very naturally by society. The societies, as some organic body, creates certain things, creates certain antibodies, you know, like the body, which you reject anything that doesn't fit it. You know this son of coherency, he rejects it. Now, what's interesting is when we think about some societies, the one over there on the other side of the sea that does that, this is so visible. Those people are so crazy or so authoritarian or so whatever you want. You don't. But the one where you are, how you participate to one of these bodies and how you reject, how you exclude, how you forbid, right, anything foreign, that's not so visible. Especially if the society we belong to, like ours now, pretends to be so open, so nice, so great, so fantastic, the top of the top there. It becomes even harder. It's easier if you live in a country where it's openly very harsh. It's easy to see the problem. But when everything pretends to be so nice, it's much harder to see and probably more vicious. And here I'd like you to think, to compare two books, 1984 and the best, what's the best world? Also, it's called
Brave New World.
Brave New World. Brave New World and 1984. Who has read those two books, 1984 and Brave New World? Okay, a few. So let me tell you briefly. 1984 is it was written, of course, way before 1984. The idea would be a dictatorial society, and very harsh, right? Very harsh, very brutal, where people have to do what they do, right? And Big Brother's watching you all the time. It's very harsh. Brave New World showed it as well a dictatorship, but very different. It's a dictatorship where people can do what they want. You know, they can do without. It's very pleasing. Of course, there are categories of people. There's the alphabet and all this. It's all organized. So there's a hierarchy of this. But for example, Huxley invented, you could go, one of the most pleasurable activity would be go to a movie where you would have sound, vision, perfumes. I mean, all your senses would be totally satisfied. Like the consumer, the idea that everybody would be satisfied. Yeah? And this everybody be satisfied, it looks a bit like the Nietzsche, the last man concept. It's like, it's full control. Control for pleasure. Control through doing what you want, doing what is pleasurable. Of course you have little functions to do, little work, but basically you have the impression to do what you want, right? Like in a series, people watching a series say, oh, I love this series, it's so great, I do what I want, I watch it, I spend all my time, weekend watching it. No, you're not doing what you want. You've been sucked in to now, it can be fun. I'm not denying, actually, just like in the movies of Huxley, that it's pleasurable. But you've been sucked in, through your pleasures. You've been profiled, and it functions quite well. How many of you watched? I watched the 18 episodes during the weekend, right? It really ate you up. It gobbled you up, right? So anyway, so the idea is that societies are very good at creating a bit like the web of the spider, something you can't get out of it, right? And if something foreign comes, well, there are all kind of system, antibodies, to reject what doesn't fit, right? What doesn't fit. And here, today, as I said, remember these two things. One is the psychological dimension, because psychology has taken a very heavy importance in our society. We can call it a certain psychologization of society. Huh? So people who are a little bit older here, when you were young, nobody used psychological terms. It was very rare, right? But today, everybody uses psychological terms. It's very, a lot of the, for example, suddenly you speak about the Oedipus complex, a lot of terms that are used in a very banal way. Psychology has become part of the common culture, right? And the way to think as psychologists is very common. And psychologist, he takes you in his office. You come because you have difficulties, you have problems. And of course it's a useful function, but it takes you there. He's going to be careful. He's going to speak to you like this. Yes, and tell me more. Okay. It can be useful when you're in pain. You don't want somebody to harsh you. A bit like you find your mommy again. And take you. And you feel really good, right? So the problem is when that becomes a standard for social relation, right? But that's very true today. We can see it a lot in pedagogy, for example, where once I was doing a workshop with children, and a teacher said, "Do you realize you're telling us exactly the opposite of what we're told in the teacher school?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" Well, there were two things that I remember she told me were opposite. The first one, you should not destabilize the children. You should not trouble the children. See, you're supposed to be very careful, very cautious. Don't trouble the poor children, yes? And the second thing is you're not supposed to leave children at the end of a session with doubts. No doubts. They should be. And ambiguities or something, and of course in the workshop I do this. I don't bring knowledge. We ask the kids, and at the end say, "Oh, we have a nice problem, kids. We don't know if it's A or B. Okay, bye-bye, let's go." You can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. These poor children will not sleep and eat because they don't know which one is the right answer. If it's A or B, you're brutal, that's right. Well, that's what I call the psychologization of society. You're supposed to make everybody feel safe and secure, and good, right? Good. So anyway, poor Socrates, right? It's not only in Athens 25 centuries ago that Parrhesia was declared non grata in the city. It was there, it was now. It looks a bit of something different. The angle or the nature of it might change a little bit, right? But what you're not supposed to do is to problematize the functioning of a society, the paradigm of a society, whatever, right? And, I mean, I don't know everybody here, but I'm sure there's certain things that for some reason you can't tolerate. You have like aversive reaction, and it makes no sense. You just can't take it, but it makes no sense. I mean, whoever, no matter how good you are, there's definitely something that functions like that in your system. In fact, in a consultation, that's what we try to find out, because in general, that's what makes people don't know, angry, unhappy, whatever, is there something, you know, like there's some organism floating around and allergic to it. You know, I don't know, for people here who had allergy, you know, your allergy, for example, you know, they have a test and say, okay, you're allergic to cat hair, dog hair, dust, pollen, right? And then they say, okay, we'll give you treatment to make you less sensitive to those things so you can live with them, you can tolerate them. Otherwise, some people get asthma. You know, you react so strongly to those organisms you cannot stand that you have asthma, right? Now, this is a biological allergy and a biological response. But think mentally, we all have that, right? Some mental asthma and some mental allergies, things that, you know, but when we say, I can't stand, blah, 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 in general, when anybody says that, what he's telling you is, this is wrong, right? Like he's so, you know, I can't stand cat hair. It means I'm good, cat hair bad, and that's the proof I'm a good person because I can't stand cat hair. Of course, it sounds totally ridiculous. I agree with you. But people would do this, you know, I don't know, I say, I can't stand people that don't listen to me. Okay? Therefore, they're good people. The people that don't listen are bad people, and they're totally, morally right to be indignant about people that don't want to listen to them. Those are bad people. Yeah? And you create a world which is very well organized between you, indignant good, and things, people, whatever, behaviors that create this indignation in you, that's the bad, right? Now, this is very nice because you have a well-organized world, right? And generally, when people they say, I can't stand, well, that's the job to do. Well, you want to learn to stand it. You want to learn how to stand it, how to get out of your allergy. Generally, they will look at you funny, you know, because that you're with him, then, huh? You're with the enemy. Are you with me or against me? You know, this system functions very well. You're with me or you're against me, right? So, but that's the job. Say, well, okay, what is so, okay, people don't listen to you? Well, could they have a good reason not to want to listen to you? Well, no, I want respect, blah, blah, blah. Well, for example, do you think you're an interesting person? That's the first question to ask. If nobody listens to you, that's the first question to ask yourself. Maybe I'm not interested. Maybe what I'm saying is boring. Right? Of course, you're not supposed to say that. You need respect. And of course, fundamental ethical principle. Everybody's interesting. You know that? Everybody has a right to his opinion. Everybody's interesting, right? You know. So sometimes you have to listen to stories because everybody's interesting. Yeah? Everybody is not true. In French, we call this secret polichinelle, Pulcinello's secret. And in some country, in some language, I know it's called an open secret. It's a secret that everybody knows. Yes, I don't know, but it's. I mean, this girl's boring. I mean, just did you talk to her? But of course, you're not supposed to do that. You know, in Italy, you have to be. They call bonismo. Bonismo is like it's in no other language. Huh? Bonismo is good. It's goodnessness. How can you say bonismo? Goodiness. I don't know. You know. You have to be good. This poor girl. How can I tell her she's boring? Look at her. She's fine. You know. It's very interesting. Yes. You know. You're not supposed to say that, right? But if she comes for a consultation asking why nobody listens to me, and if I use a Socratic principle, what's the first question is, do you think you're interesting? Do you think you're interesting?
Yeah.
It's hard to say no. It's very difficult. No, I'm bored. Well, thank you. You're a good partner. I'm going to use you again. You know. And of course, you're not supposed not only to say it, but to ask, right? You know. For example, do you often complain? Or you often repeat things that because you're obsessed with it, something like that. Do you often complain?
Yes.
Yes, okay, well, do you know? Do you think it's interesting for other people? You know, you ask, right? And especially if you, imagine you're married with somebody, And every day, you get up in the morning, complain, complain, complain. Do you want to listen to this person, or do you want to go look on Facebook rather? Yes? Well, the answer is obvious. Facebook beats it anytime. Yes? You know? So the idea is that there is this self-righteousness, right? Which is natural. Well, we all have that. Self-righteousness, you know. They're the good and the bad, and of course I belong to the good. And what is opposite to me is what I can't stand, right? It's a basic dynamic. And in a way it's understandable, because that's where you can live with yourself. If you think, some people think they're with the bad, then you have a problem. You know, you might as well commit suicide, or you're going to suffer a lot, right? So generally we manage to be on the right side, and the others are on the wrong side. And Socrates, with his questioning, he asked us to question so we don't know which side we're on. In a way, it produces what Nietzsche called transvaluation. Transvaluation for Nietzsche is basically the shift in connotation, right? You take values which have positive connotation, you give negative connotation, and you take values with negative connotation, you give positive connotation. Nietzsche did this because he was fighting against Christian values. He wanted to go back to Greek values, right? And he was very opposed to, for example, the value we find today. Today, fragility is very popular. Oh, no, more popular, vulnerable. You know, say, she's vulnerable. Wow, this is so good to be vulnerable. You know, it's a great girl. You know, she's vulnerable, right? Now, it's interesting because in the Greek system, if she's vulnerable, you might as well kill her. She's useless, you know? What are you going to do with somebody vulnerable? Provoke things, but to be vulnerable is good, and to be harsh is bad, right? So you're supposed to be vulnerable. So the idea is apology of weakness. And of course, in the Greek ethics, no, in the Greek ethics, it's exercising power. Power is good. In the Christian system, no, humility is good. You have to be humble. Humble is good.